Atlus and Sega have had an incredible year in 2024 with big hits like Persona 3 Reload, Shin Megami Tensei 5, Unicorn Overlord, and more to come with Metaphor ReFantazio. But I do think that the situation surrounding the Nintendo Switch and its successor with Atlus JRPG Sega games is getting a lot more interesting based off of some of the things that we are going to go over and some questions that I get from you guys all the time in my comment sections about Atlus games in addition to my live streams. But before we get into anything, what's good everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new or if you haven't done so already, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. And since we are talking about Atlus, JRPGs, and Metaphor ReFantazio, I do want to mention that I am having a special edition giveaway for Metaphor ReFantazio. Just subscribe to the channel, make sure you do that, comment down below, notification bell, all that good stuff, and there will be more announcements on how you can win that in the future. We're gonna jump right into this situation with Atlus, their JRPGs, Sega, and their games with Nintendo and what's going forward in the future, because many of you guys once again have been talking about this as we head into the second half of games to come, not only from Atlus, but from other developers and the big games that you guys are most interested in. Now, let's jump into it here first, because this year in 2024, when it comes to Atlus, when it comes to Sega, they've had a banner year. They've had some of the best rated games of the year, hands down. This cannot be disputed. If you're looking at earlier in the year, we had Unicorn Overlord, still one of the best rated Nintendo Switch games, one of the best rated titles, and a strategy RPG that definitely breathed a little bit of new life into the genre that has received a lot of great games over the past couple years. Love that title. Then recently, we had Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, which took the original SMT5, which was already a good game in most people's opinions at least, and they revamped it completely, adding a bunch of new story elements, new demons, and a bunch of quality of life features that essentially remake the whole game and make it so much more enjoyable. I'm 60 hours in or so, and I'm having a blast with the game. I cannot wait to finish that one out. Those two games were on the Nintendo Switch, and that's why I say this gets interesting here, because Persona 3 Reload came out earlier in the year, and that was not on the Nintendo Switch. A lot of you guys asked me about that. What is going on with it? And of course, we've talked about how there's been leaks and rumors and all sorts of stuff with Persona 3 Reload coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, and that's the reason why it wasn't on the original Nintendo Switch. Now, also later this year, we've got Metaphor ReFantazio, and that's the big one that people are talking about as well. Now, by extension, you can look at a game like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. That was also not released on the Nintendo Switch, and the Nintendo Switch 2 situation, once again, it looks like that could be a game that will be on the successor based off of some information that's out there. But I do feel that there is a reason for a lot of this that's going on. Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, it looks, from what we've understood here, it looks like that actually did better on Nintendo platforms overall than all of the other platforms. Now, we've only gotten one sales update with that game, and I think they combined it. Yes, they did. They combined it with the original SMT5, which sold 1.1 million on the Nintendo Switch. Then they added in 500,000 for all of the copies of the game SMT5 Vengeance to 1.6 million. So not bad at all, but once again shows that there is a huge base of people when it comes to JRPGs, SMT, that are on Nintendo platforms. Unicorn Overlord sold over 500,000 units, all platforms combined, but from what we saw overall, does look like the Nintendo Switch seems to be a good share of those. So of course, if you're looking at the situation with the Nintendo Switch and the successor, Atlus absolutely wants to leverage their games that are already out, that have not hit the Nintendo Switch and that are coming out on Nintendo platforms or on a Nintendo platform. But how that's going to take shape is going to really be a whirlwind from when Nintendo actually decides to discuss the Nintendo Switch 2 and when the system actually comes out. Now, starting off with Persona 3 Reload, I think that this is pretty much a lock to be on the Nintendo Switch 2. And if the Switch 2 wasn't coming out, or if rumoredly the Switch 2 was supposed to be out in 2024 but got an internal delay, I think we would have absolutely saw Persona 3 Reload announced for the Nintendo Switch 2. Or if Nintendo just had no plans at all, let's just say it was still a number of years off, I'm almost positive Atlus would have made a version of Persona 3 Reload for the Nintendo Switch, because there's nothing else in sight when they were planning and getting ready this game. I understand how some people could be upset by that, but at the end of the day, I think that if you get a better experience and it's a newer platform and you got stuff to play, I think that's going to be really good for the Nintendo Switch 2 going forward in the future, as the Nintendo Switch is pretty much already a made system, and you're going to need some good third party, you're going to need some other stuff to kind of entice people to pick up the Nintendo Switch successor. So I do understand that. Metaphor Refantazio is very interesting because it's launching on October 11th, and man, that definitely seems like a time period that maybe when they were planning this, that okay, Switch 2 could have been announced sometime in 2023, maybe the system was out in first half of 2024, and then bam, you get Metaphor Refantazio as well, along with all the other systems. But once again, Nintendo has stated that they will announce the Switch 2 at some point within the fiscal year, which will be from March to March of next year or so. So we'll get some announcements with that. But I do think that both of these games are going to be coming. But I do want to move on to another game that's absolutely going to get a ton of buzz when it's announced, and that's going to be Persona 6. Now, we've gotten rumors about Persona 6. We don't exactly know. There hasn't been anything credible enough about it to say exactly when it's going to come out. It seems like green might be the theme of the game as well. But once again, it's all rumors. We don't have enough solid information overall. But Persona 6 is going to be an incredibly important game for Atlus. If you go back and look at what Persona 5 did, in my opinion, Persona 5, I wouldn't say that it saved the company, but it kind of did in terms of that branch of Sega. Without Persona 5 and the consistent revenue that it brought in, the consistent attention that it demands with all of its re-releases and all of the game sales that it's gotten, over 10 million units combined overall, Persona 5 was absolutely a mega hit for Atlus, and they needed that. So looking into Persona 6, I think that absolutely that's going to be a game that really needs to perform well and really needs to do well at the beginning and not have a build up like we saw being only on the PlayStation 4 with Persona 5. So I do feel that Persona 6 is going to be something, obviously not a Nintendo Switch game, right? We're not looking at Nintendo Switch when it comes to Persona 6. We're probably looking at PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PC, and Nintendo Switch 2. There was some rumors that it could be announced at a Microsoft show or event in the summer, and obviously that didn't happen. So could we see them get the marketing deal like they got with Metaphor Refantazio and Persona 3 Reload? Absolutely. I think it'd be a waste of money considering where most people are going to pick up Persona 6, which would be PlayStation and Nintendo, but I still feel that Microsoft might swoop in just to let people know, hey, you know, you can play this, and maybe it's even on Game Pass overall. But for me, I definitely would be like, okay, what are you guys doing with this on Nintendo Switch 2? How does it look? What's going on with it? And of course, PlayStation 5 or whatever the case is. Like, I would just want to play Persona 6. And I'm hoping that they actually have like a nice cross-save system set up by then, because Atlus needs to realize that people buy their games on multiple platforms, and people have been doing that. Persona 5 definitely bought on multiple platforms. Persona 4, Persona 3, people do that all the time. Which, if you're speaking of those games, obviously you cannot deny the connection between the Persona sales and the Persona series and what happened recently with the Nintendo Switch. Now, there was a huge movement. I'm just going to jog you guys' memory with this. There was a huge movement before we got the confirmations of Persona 4 or 5 on the Nintendo Switch called Break Free Persona. And there was a lot of Nintendo fans, JRPG fans, whatever the case is, that are saying Persona needs to come to other platforms. And a lot of hardcore Persona fans and hardcore PlayStation fans were definitely saying it was never going to happen. All you got to do is go back and look at my videos and the dislikes and what people were commenting whenever I would suggest or say, hey, look, this can happen, or here's what's going on, or I've heard this. And obviously that's happened now. So that's great that it's happened now at this point. But I do think that that was a big boon overall. the Nintendo Switch was able to help Persona get more popular, get way more popular, because it's on the platform that, one, sells the most in Japan, one of the best or best-selling platform of all time overall, in addition to it still, at this point, going into year 8, still being at the top of the sales charts. You need to have your core JRPG flagship franchise on the most popular system, and that's the Nintendo Switch. And that's why I think with Persona 3, 4, and 5 all coming to the Nintendo Switch and being successful overall, I do think that's going to take a toll on what ATLUS and what SEGA does going forward, planning out their RPGs for the year 2025, 2026, 2027. That stuff is being planned out right now. And it's not like they announced it and they just decided to start making the game for the most part. So I feel that all of that, with this situation with ATLUS and their RPGs, what's happened over the course of Persona 3, 4, and 5, Unicorn Overlord, Shin Megami Tensei 5, all of that was a learning experience, because it was a bit painful when it came to Nintendo Switch fans and ATLUS supporting the system. It was very slow at the beginning. People complained a lot, but I think that it ended fairly decently. And heading into this next generation, it's absolutely going to be a key factor into what ATLUS does, and probably factored into how they're going to be able to sell their games, especially if they're basing it off of projections. They're basing it off of, okay, look, Nintendo Switch did this, we sold it this much games on this platform, and we think that's going to continue with the Nintendo Switch too. So man, very exciting to see this. Once again, it's a little bit of a weird situation, but I think that it's getting far more interesting overall for what ATLUS is going to do and their JRPGs and their games just overall in general. Also SEGA as well and what they do, because even with Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, we haven't gotten a sales update since that original 1 million. Now, it seems like they're planning their next reveal for later this year for the Like a Dragon series, and I'm not saying that it's going to be on the Nintendo Switch or they're going to say anything about Nintendo Switch 2 or anything like that, but I do feel that even that wasn't necessarily a massive, like, oh my gosh, it's going to sell like 5-6 million units, which I don't think they expected that. But I do feel if they added Nintendo Switch 2 and that system blows up, you're going to get instantly, you're going to get a lot more sales in Japan, and it could blow up a bit more depending on the theme of the game and what's going on with what Nintendo does with their successor here in the US and in Europe. So we'll see what happens going forward in the future, but man, I'm excited for ATLUS and their JRPGs and what's going to happen with them going forward, because I think it's a pretty good sign overall. We should see some cool stuff, especially once Nintendo reveals the Nintendo Switch 2. So what are your thoughts when it comes to ATLUS's 2024, their JRPG situation going forward? Metaphor Refantazio, looking forward to that. Persona 3 Reload, all of that. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.